Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and Blizzard decided to do yet another round of Covenant ability tuning with this Wednesday update. With this comes buffs and nerfs to certain Covenant abilities, breaking a few metas that have developed on the beta so far, which hopefully might make picking the Covenant for you less of a hard choice between a cool looking transmog and an awesome environment versus that best in slot ability. So let's take a look at all the changes that Blizzard has implemented in this Wednesday update for a variety of Covenant abilities. Warning though, not all these abilities are functional and not all the implementations are available. There's probably going to be hot fixes on the beta, and some of these abilities will actually get some usage and full functionality probably by next week, but that's just how things on the beta sometimes are. So let's take a look at some of these updates. If you're a Death Knight, you probably thought to yourself that you will have to play the Fey Covenant because Death Stew as an ability was way too good. Well, the blue version of Death and Decay with the Fey Covenant has gotten updates. You no longer passively drain the strength out of your enemy. Now the rotation is going to be a little bit more involved, where you drop down Death Stew and certain abilities like Heart Strike or Scourge Strike for the Unholy Death Knight, as well as Obliterate, will then drain the life out of your enemy, making the enemy weaker and also granting you strength. The amount of strength has also been changed to be only 8 stacks, so 8% strength max. You will notice that for Blood Death Knight and Unholy Death Knight, both of those abilities can actually cleave while inside of Death and Decay. So they added a functionality for your Frost Death Knight Obliterate to hit one additional target if you want to siphon multiple enemies' health. Quite a big update, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting for all of you that did not look forward to playing as a Fairy Death Knight. Demon Hunters have gotten a couple updates. There was a significant buff to Elysian Decree, which is the Kyrian ability. We have a nerf happening to the ability Fodder to the Flame. We also have Sinful Brand getting a buff in damage, as well as the Hunt getting a buff in the actual impact damage, as well as the damage over time effect that it applies. We got quite a few updates to the Hunter abilities, like Flayed Shot will make your next kill shot that does proc free instead of costing the 10 focus that it normally costs. Resonating Arrow will have actual impact damage when it strikes, and if the enemy walks out of the AoE, primarily for PvP, they will still retain the line of sight hitting debuff for 4 extra seconds. The Wild Mark as an ability also now has a little bit extra damage when you first press it, and whether you use AoE attacks or even pet kill commands, the ability will strike 5 enemies under its mark. We also got a few improvements to the ability of Chakram, as it will no longer try to hit enemies that are under CC. Quite a lot of the Covenant abilities have actually gotten similar update, where they will try to hit less enemies if they're under crowd control to be more friendly towards PvP. Big update for mages that are going to be playing Venthyr. Mirrors of Torment can now proc off of auto attacks. Normally this ability would proc off of spell effects and abilities, but now it can also proc off of enemy auto attacks with a slight delay between charges. This will make this ability a little bit easier to use within PvP, but also within PvE, which is the primary fix that Blizzard wanted to do. Every time a mirror is consumed, Arcane Mages gain mana, Fire Mages reduce Fire Blast cooldown, and Frost Mages gain Brain Freeze, so it gives you a little bit more of an offensive playstyle with a little bit of procs, mana management, or Fire Blast for those combustions. I would say quite a significant buff for mages that were looking at Venthyr and loved the Mogs, but weren't happy with the Covenant ability. Shamans have gotten quite a few updates. First of all, a lot of damage buffs across the board. Chain Harvest has gotten a pretty massive damage buff. Phase Transfusion now does a lot more damage and is more split evenly amongst enemies, so it'll do the most damage to a singular enemy. For Enhancement Shaman in particular, after finishing channeling this ability, Enhancement will gain Maelstrom Weapon, making it a little bit better for Enhancement. And they also adjusted the amount of healing this ability will do as well. You also have had a change to Primordial Wave, where the ability is now instant cast, where Enhancement Shamans do not get extra value from using Primordial Wave. We also got an interesting ability for rogues, a brand new one for the Venthyr Covenant. Looks like Slaughter just wasn't cutting it, so Blizzard decided to come up with Flagellation, where the rogue will actually lash at the enemy with anima 3 times, trying to kind of condemn the enemy for their sins. Very similar to what the Venthyr did to Garrosh. The enemy is then marked, and every common point you spend into a finisher offensively against the enemy adds extra lashes. After about 20 lashes or so, you gain a mastery buff for a set amount of time. As for how much damage this ability should do and how long this buff should last for and how big should this mastery buff be, it's hard to tell because, well, Blizzard Blue Post says one thing and the actual tooltip of the ability says another. As soon as this ability is there on the beta for testing, I will make a video on it, so I'll need to come back to Flagellation at a later time. Then we got Warlocks having a couple things breaking the meta. If you're gonna play the big Drain Life Affliction Warlock, I don't think you're gonna be able to play that as successfully. Decimating Bolt, which is a very popular ability amongst different specs of Warlocks, is now going to be adjusted depending on your spec and depending on your build. If you play an Affliction Warlock with Drain Life, you'll only be able to get 1 Drain Life instead of 3 back to back, reducing the burst of Warlocks quite a bit, especially for PvE content. If you are a Destro Warlock, using abilities like Fire and Brimstone to get a bunch of powerful incinerates will also reduce the value that the actual Decimating Bolt provides. Blizzard does want to buff Decimating Bolts for Demonology though, by making it apply from Demon Bolts instead of Shadow Bolts. As of currently in the beta, this effect doesn't seem to work, maybe tomorrow. Then you also have a change happening to the ability of Soul Rot. This ability is now going to not longer do damage to you when you use this ability, and the Drain Life on your primary target will be even stronger. So Affliction Warlocks might want to try to find a Drain Life build rather than a Drain Soul build, and hopefully this will make this ability just a little bit stronger. Then we have some changes to monks, and I'll go over monks I think in a separate video, but I'll cover this right here while I have it. Weapons of Order has been redesigned for Windwalker monks. Now for the next 30 seconds, your mastery is increased by 13%. Additionally, Rising Sun Kick reduces chi cost by 1 for 5 seconds. And Blackout Kick reduces the cooldown of effect abilities by an additional 1 second. And then there was an update to the Feline Stomp. Feline Stomp now deals nature damage, or heals if Mistweaver, to targets in front of the monk when cast, and continues to deal additional damage to targets caught in the Felines. Both of these abilities do need more testing. There is also quite a bit of updates in terms of the balancing and the tuning, but I feel like it's not really worth covering the balance and tunings right now, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a massive balance tuning patch at the very end of the beta cycle, and as we're inching our way towards Shadowlands little by little, it looks like it should be happening hopefully sometime very soon. It seems that Blizzard is actively trying to adjust a lot of these Covenant abilities in terms of giving some power to some and taking away power from others. It looks like a lot of the classes in the game right now do feel like there is only one good option of a Covenant ability. Like one is really best in slot and certain Covenant abilities are really far behind. So it's good that Blizzard is at least taking steps in order to make certain Covenant abilities better. Especially excited about the one with Slaughter, as the poison element simply just wasn't working out, especially if you were Assassination rogue, so we'll see how that goes. I'll end up making updates on some of these combos and abilities if any new builds do come up. But I do wonder if some kind of a big drain AoE, drain life build for Warlocks might become a thing. I wonder how good Flagellation is going to be for rogues. Is there now going to be possibility for a Night Phase Shaman? And how many of you Death Knights are actually finally going to be able to happily drop the Fae and play the Covenant you really want to? I'd like to hear in the comments below if any of you guys are now going to be changing your Covenants, and which Covenant are you thinking of going? Did any of these changes, like the nerf to the Fae for Death Knights or the buff to the Vent for Mages, finally convince you to follow your heart and pick the Covenant you truly like, and now you're less likely and pressured to pick the best in slot option? Thank you guys so much for watching, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in another video.